Last month, one evening, my wife reached the house with a lot of shopping bags. I remember her charming, good mood that evening. She seemed really joyful and jovial that day. It is true that I had seen her being tremendously delighted and glad after so long, because her mood used to be off from me most of the time. But that evening, her blissful behavior was beyond my understanding. It was clearly visible that she had come from the shopping. On reading the brand's name written on the shopping bag carried by my wife, I realized that she was shopping from an expensive place. To tell you the truth, I did not think about it anymore. Instead, I was wondering about my wife's good mood towards me. I remember as soon as she reached the house, she gave me a smile and cuddled me for seconds. I was extremely happy after my wife cuddled me because literally she hugged me willingly that evening after about almost 5 or 6 months. Since my wife joined her workplace, she used to be swamped most of the time. That evening, I was happy to see my wife's good behavior towards me because I was thinking that might be my wife decided to be loving and caring towards me, again just like she used to be before at the initial days of our marriage life, but the after few moments, soon I realized that, so yeah guys, this is going to be indeed cliffhanging and staggering. Me, Ren Levy, and my wife, Hazel Wren, have been married for 3 years. I'm having a baby boy. We had a baby boy. We were indeed a really happy and undistributed couple, but it was my misunderstanding. That evening, my wife did not just hug me, but also hold my hand and expressed her sense of gratitude towards me by calling me a cooperative and generous partner. I became kind of relaxed and happy after hearing those words from my wife and lovingly asked my wife to eat dinner with me. My wife replied all right and hurriedly went to the washroom in order to get fresh before taking dinner. My wife was taking a shower in the washroom and I was waiting for my wife outside. My wife's random good behavior and words for me were continuously popping up in my mind. I really did not know how to respond that time because, not telling you the truth, my wife's good behavior was just indigestible. Well, I was just about to go to the kitchen in order to microwave the food when my wife's phone started ringing. When I checked my wife's phone, I was shocked to see that someone whose name was saved from Daddy was making a video call to my wife. Like seriously, who is Daddy? My wife's father died 10 years ago. I was just about to pick the call in order to uncover the reality. Meanwhile, my wife appeared. When she found her phone, she became extremely confused and was kinda angry. She snatched her phone from me, lovingly, and sat to initiate the dinner. While eating the dinner, I was continuously thinking about that video call on my wife's phone, where the contact name was saved as Daddy. I really wanted to ask my wife about that matter, but I did not because I had seen her happy after a long time and I did not want to ruin her mood at all. After dinner, when my wife and I went to our bedroom, my wife started unboxing her shopping bags with excitement. I was literally shocked to see such an expensive ring which my wife took out from the branded velvet box. My wife was excitedly trying that ring. When I read the bill of her shopping, I was literally dismayed to realize that my wife spent $5,000 on her shopping, which included rings and other branded stuff. When I asked my wife where she got a lot of money for this shopping, my wife gave me a sarcastic smile and replied that her rich friend gave her money to buy all these things. When I asked my wife about her friend to give her such a good amount of money for the shopping, my wife told me that her friend belonged to a rich family who was working at my wife's workplace just for the quality time pass. I did not know how to respond to my wife because that Daddy's phone call was already in my mind. The same night, I caught my wife continuously looking towards her finger where she wore the ring. The way my wife glanced at her ring was indeed exceptional. Soon I realized that the reason behind her contented mood was her expensive gifts. My wife was literally in the sky on the 9th. From that day, I started noticing my wife's activities. In fact, after about 3 days when I was playing with my baby boy, I caught sight of my wife writing something on the paper. I generally asked my wife what she was writing in the paper. My wife replied that she was making the grocery list. I became kind of sad and disappointed because I knew that I did not have enough money to buy the grocery that time. I came close to my wife and told her that I did not get the salary yet. I apologized to her and politely asked my wife to wait for my salary because I was totally out of money at that time and unable to buy her the groceries. When I apologized to my wife for buying the grocery that time, the way my wife replied to me was indeed downhearted. She said to me ironically that she was not intending to ask for money from me. When I asked my wife where she got the money for the groceries, my wife muttered and said she would manage. The next day, I was literally shocked to see my wife coming out from a luxurious car with a lot of shopping bags having groceries inside it. When I asked my wife who dropped her at the doorstep and from where she got the imported grocery stuff's money, as usual, my wife replied that her rich friend purchased all this for her. Who is your friend? I was literally tired of hearing about her rich friend who was financially supporting her. I asked my wife if it was not good at all to take such expensive things from her friend every time. My wife had a scornful smile and taunting me that her friend wasn't a miser like me. Like seriously, what was my wife actually trying to say to me? Although that daddy's name on my wife's phone was still in my mind, I was still thinking that maybe it was my wife's friend who was actually financially supporting her. But the same night I realized the reality, or in simple, everything uncovered when it was almost 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. when I was watching the series on Netflix. Meanwhile, I caught my wife feeling nausea. I asked my wife to go to the washroom. She hurriedly went to the washroom, and I then started searching for medicine for her. I was just searching for the medicine when suddenly the light went off. My wife started yelling from the washroom. There was darkness all around. I wasn't able to see anything. However, I succeeded in taking the mobile phone, but due to darkness, I wasn't sure whether it was mine or my wife's mobile phone. When I clicked the mobile phone's button, I realized that it was my wife's mobile phone in my hand. I tried to unlock it in order to turn on the flashlight, but there was a passcode. I was just about to take my wife's mobile phone to her inside the washroom when my wife's phone began to ring. When I saw on her mobile phone screen, I realized that again that daddy person was calling my wife. But this time I found a heart emoji with that name as well. After this, I was damn sure that my wife was dating someone whose name was saved as Daddy in her mobile phone. That heart with his name was indeed a red flag for me. I was just in shock after seeing Daddy's phone call on my wife's mobile phone. Meanwhile, the light came on. My wife immediately came out of the washroom. Her condition made it crystal clear that she wasn't fine that time. She was in a state of dizziness. When I asked my wife to take medicine, she did not reply to me, instead turning off all the lights and sleeping. My wife was sleeping peacefully, but I was continuously thinking about that daddy who was used to call my wife almost daily multiple times. Something was definitely wrong with her. The next day when I woke up, I received a message from my workplace where they informed me that they expelled me from my designation due to my unpunctuality. I was extremely depressed that time. I had really wanted to discuss this matter with my wife, but I did not want to give her anxiety as her health was already not fine. I did not know what to do next. I decided to search for a job just now. Well, I went to the cupboard in order to take out my document file. Meanwhile, I caught a sight of an expensive perfume. They were still unpacked. My wife had cunningly hidden back, or she did not want me to know about these perfumes. After seeing those expensive perfumes again, that daddy matter appeared in my mind. I literally got a headache because all of this matter. It seemed like I had a mental breakdown. I immediately called one of my friends and asked him to meet me at the cafe. I told my wife everything about my wife's relationship with me. I even called him about daddy expensive gifts. After listening to me, he gave me a suggestion to keep an eye on my wife because he was sure that my wife was doing a daddy or aged person who was actually supporting her financially. After listening to all this, I became extremely disheartened. Well, on reaching the house, I started a general conversation with my wife and asked my wife to invite her friend to our house who was supporting her financially. After listening to me, my wife's behavior confirmed my relationship status, as I literally found her like a fish out of water at that time. If it were really true that her friend was actually supporting her financially, she would definitely agree with me to invite her friend to our house for the dinner, but her response was just beyond my understanding. Like literally she said to me that I was a flirt who wanted to meet her friend in order to date her. She was never this possessive. The way she covered her situation to hide her reality made me crystal clear that the reason behind her expensive gifts wasn't her rich friend, but it was someone to whom my wife wasn't just dating, but he used to fulfill all her financial needs as well. I really wanted to know about that daddy, so I decided to chase my wife in order to know the reality. The next day, me and my wife were watching TV when I heard that my wife's phone began to ring. When my wife hurriedly picked her phone and went to the store to talk with the person who was on call, I silently chased my wife and tried my best to listen to the conversation, but all in vain as the storeroom was locked. However, when my wife came out of the storeroom, I found her eyes and nose red. It seemed like she had cried. I really wanted to know about the reality. Next day, when my wife left for her workplace, I chased her but found no clue what she was doing. But everything exposed to me the same evening when my wife was preparing herself. When I asked her where she was going, my wife replied that she was going to meet one of her friends who had just recovered from an accident. When I offered to drop her to her friend's house, my wife refused and went. As soon as my wife went out, I started chasing my wife. I literally flabbergasted to see my wife stopped near a garden. It seemed like she was waiting for someone. 5 minutes passed when I caught sight of a luxurious car that was there to pick up my wife. That was the same car that once came outside of our house, to which my wife claimed it was her rich friend's car. I kept following them silently and was shocked to see them entering inside a luxurious and a famous mall of the town. The person to whom my wife was dating seemed to be of 50s. I realized that daddy was actually my wife's sugar daddy. I was extremely furious that time, but I did not panic. I clicked their photos and went to the house. I started waiting for my wife. As usual, my wife reached the house with a lot of shopping bags. When I asked my wife where she got such an expensive item, my wife's reply was the same. Her friend purchased everything for her. I started yelling at my wife and showed my wife her pictures with her sugar daddy. Instead of feeling ashamed, my wife told me boldly that I was not fulfilling her financial needs. She further told me that she would not leave her sugar daddy at any cost. My feet froze after seeing my wife's unconditional love for her sugar daddy. I really wanted to kill my wife at the moment. But then I decided to take a lessonful revenge on her. When I gave her a fake smile and told her that I was okay with her relationship with her sugar daddy. After listening to my words, my wife became extremely happy and confused at the same time. She started calling me the best husband who was allowing her to have a sugar daddy who was fulfilling her all needs. I remember that time I wasn't able to sleep properly because my wife was talking to her sugar daddy next to me. Like seriously, I loved her with all my full heart. Why did she do this to me? I was burning with revenge. The next day, again, my wife reached the house very late with a lot of shopping bags. And I secretly checked her shopping bag. I was literally shocked to see very expensive branded lingeries inside it. The same night, I noticed a lot of love bites on her body that made it crystal clear that my wife was actually in a physical relationship with her sugar daddy. One thing that was extremely shocking for me is that my wife actually aborted a baby as well last week. I came to know about it when I caught a file of abortion under my wife's bed. My eyes were filled with tears that time. I had not ever thought that she could do this to me. At the same time, I wiped out my tears and started looking for expensive gifts in order to sell them. I sold my wife's expensive gifts which her sugar daddy purchased for her. The same night when my wife realized that her expensive gifts had vanished from the cupboard, I created a drama like if someone or a thief stole them. I was actually in a chance of grabbing my wife's credit card. One day when my wife reached the house, I gave her a coffee cup having a medicine mixed inside it. I actually intended to make my wife drunk or sleepy so that I would be able to know about her credit card details. As soon as my wife fell asleep, I hurriedly went to the shopping mall and purchased very expensive stuff with my wife's credit card. I also sold my wife's all expensive gifts and saved the money with me. My friend had already booked my ticket to New York. Here's special thanks to Harvey Gilbert, my friend. All my essential luggage was already packed. I took all the money and stuff with me and left for New York. All of you guys definitely want to know that either I miss my son or not after reaching New York. Yes, I do miss him, but I am not his biological father. 2 weeks passed and I got no contact with Hazel. However, yesterday, from my friend, I came to know that Hazel's sugar daddy humiliated her in front of everyone in the street. Well, I don't want to think about it. Here in New York, I started my own business of ice cream selling. I am happy now.